You know, if there's one bait out there that I feel like I have an advantage using and maybe a little bit more experience using over the rest of the Elite Series anglers that I compete against, it's definitely putting a Z-Man Scented Jerk ShadZ on the Smeltinator jig head. And man, I've done well in a lot of tournaments, won a lot of money with this setup, and use a few different sizes of the baits. They obviously come in the 4 and 5 inch. This year we've got them in the 3.5 inch, so that's a new size. They also have this new color that I've been telling them I've wanted for a long time, but that's called Gussy's Blue Glimmer. And so I have my actually own color with Z-Man in these baits, which my favorite bait, get my own color. Pretty awesome of them to do that. But that's you know, in a lot of the tannic waters that we have up north where I live, the water's clear, but it has a little bit of color to it. And this blue kind of pearl style color really glows, and catch a lot of fish with it. Not only smallmouths, but walleyes as well. The origin of this whole system, you know, the moping deal, Demiki rig, it really kind of started up in my part of the world, I think, and particularly on Rainy Lake on the Minnesota-Ontario border. Back in 2003, 2004, around there, Jim and Bill Linder actually won the Fort Francis Canadian Bass Championships 2 years in a row and caught a lot of their fish on this style of bait, putting it on a jig head, catching suspended smallmouths, deep smallmouths. There's a few other anglers up in my part of the world, Ted Stooner, Alex Kessler. They were actually walleye anglers, tournament anglers that started fishing bass tournaments and had a lot of success using this style of bait. Over the last 15 years, you know, we have quite a few good tournaments around where I live on Lake of the Woods, Rainy Lake, and this is sort of, you know, transferred down into the Midwest, into Minnesota as well, this technique. But it's standard equipment. I mean, you show up at a tournament at home where I live, and just about every boat in the tournament will have these baits tied on, and just a great bait for smallmouths. They love to eat shiners and smelt and ciscos and even perch, and these baits do a great job emulating those different bait fish. So for me, you know, when I went to Knoxville in 2021, won my first Elite Series tournament, I caught all my fish on that bait, and it really felt like I was fishing at home. If you looked at my screen, it looked exactly the same how it would look at home, as far as just the smallmouth sort of acting the same way, hiding down in the rocks. So pretty cool that it, you know, I just felt very comfortable doing what I was doing. Last year when the Bassmaster Classic site was announced that we were going back to Knoxville, I mean, obviously I was very excited. Added a little bit of stress to my season last year, because obviously I wanted to be in that tournament. Things all worked out. Went back this year, and you know, the Classic's kind of a unique event in that there's no points. You want to show up and fish to win that one. And I was fully committed to fishing with this bait. I knew how good it worked there, and it was just all about finding the fish. And fortunately, I found a few spots where it kind of worked out. But now I'm sort of 10 years plus into fishing for a living, fishing bass tournaments for a living all over the country. And I mean, this year our season has had a lot of events and you know, shallow events, so I haven't been able to use it as much. But last year, I think 7 of the 9 Elite Series tournaments, I weighed fish on some variation of that jerk shad on a Smeltinator jig. And you know, just something that I have a lot of confidence in. And obviously it's a proven great smallmouth bait, but catch a lot of spotted bass on it and catch a lot of largemouths on it as well. And it used to be, it was a full vertical presentation. We'd use our 2D, get on top of fish that we see under the boat, hang this thing above their head, and you know, hope you could trick one, shake the bait properly, and trick them into coming up and biting it. Now with having Mega Live on the front of the boat, I'm able to cast and reel the little rig over top of the fish, and you catch, you know, you add more catching to your total at the end of the day, just because some of these places that we fish now get a lot of pressure. Those bass know if there's a boat on top of them, that's danger. And so if you can put this bait on top of them and in front of them before they know the boat's there, your odds of catching them go up a lot. So anymore, I want to say it's sort of 50-50 on fish that I catch vertical under the boat and fish that I catch in front of the boat that I see on forward-facing sonar. So, you know, just that's going to continue to evolve, and you're going to see these baits just win more tournaments and be an effective tool for anglers all over the country with the use of the forward-facing sonar. So when it comes to rigging up, you know, you want a 7 to 7'4" kind of medium action rod. And for me, I'm pretty spoiled. I'm using an NRX Plus. That's an 852, a 7'1" 1" rod. I'll use the 872 as well. It's a 7.3. It's got a little bit softer tip. I actually like that one the best for casting, and I like the 7.1 the best for dropping under my trolling motor, just because I can keep the bait a little bit tighter to the boat. But they're both, you know, medium action, nice soft tip, and very sensitive. So I can feel, sometimes those fish will come up and absolutely clobber the thing and just about feels like you're getting punched in the arm. Other times, the bites are very subtle and soft, and you kind of gotta, you know, sometimes you see the bite on the yellow line more than you actually feel it. But for reels, you know, any standard spinning reel, 2500, 3000 size, that's a Shimano Stella. Again, I'm doing it for a living. I want the best equipment that I can get, and that rod and reel is as good as it gets. I like 10-pound power, just 10-pound regular Power Pro. I've used this line on my spinning reels for like 20 years. It's bulletproof, very reliable. And then for the most part, I'm using a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. Shimano has some new fluorocarbon this year called Mastiff, and it's high-end, just like the reels and rods that they make. Really good stuff. I've been happy with it. Haven't had any bad experiences. And you know, there's times fishing for some of those spotted bass, they can be pickier about line more than smallmouths and largemouths, I find. Sometimes you got to drop to use 8. If I'm, you know, at Lake Fork, I was catching fish on this last year, and you know, you never know what you're gonna hook there. So I was using 12 and 14-pound leaders. You know, you could beef it up a little bit. The water's not that clear, but generally 10 and 10 is the way to go with the line for this setup on most smallmouth applications. You know, all these years later, it's pretty cool to see this technique sort of expand and be used all over North America by, you know, all kinds of anglers, and you know, a lot of anglers have success with it. I've been mostly talking bass, but for the walleye anglers out there, I catch hundreds of walleyes a year on this bait. You know, using it sort of the same as I am for bass. Sometimes you can let it hit the bottom and you can snap jig it and trigger walleyes to bite if they're being finicky a little bit, but just a great bait, and not only smallmouths and walleyes, but up where I live at Lake of the Woods, it's one of the best multi-species lakes in the world. We catch a lot of pike on these. We actually catch lake trout throughout the open water season on these, but just a great minnow imitator no matter where you're fishing or what you're fishing for.